Okay, so welcome everyone to the Parkland Poetry reading series. My name is Josephine LoRe, and I joined the Parkland Poets series, I think it was back in April when we went into lockdown. I live in Calgary, and Parkland Poet is mainly based around the Edmonton area, Stony Plain, and so physically there would have been no way for me to actually get myself there, but because of Zoom I was able to join. It's a very wonderful, welcoming, supportive group. And I've been involved in quite a few of the projects and initiatives that the Society has made available for the members. And this is my first time hosting, so I'm a little bit nervous. It didn't help that my computer crashed, but I'd like to welcome everybody. And I would also like to read an acknowledgement of land. We are streaming to you from Stony Plain, Alberta, which is on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and traveling route of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux peoples. Parkland Poets Society acknowledges all of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who first brought language and poetry to this land. So as I mentioned already, the feature readers are going to be reading the first section, then there'll be about a 10-minute break, and then it'll be the open mic. I'd like to thank the sponsors who make this possible with their present, past, and continuing support: Stony Plain Public Library, Spruce Grove Public Library, the Town of Stony Plain, Edmonton's Stroll of Poets, the dedicated board members of Parkland Poets Society, and the scheduled readers and audience. Okay. Lisa, would you like to start?
Hello everybody. I'm so honored that you're all here tonight. It's we have 42 people who've joined us tonight, and so it's yeah, it's very exciting. I'm here to launch my new book, and I have it on display right here. I don't know how well you can see it there in the background, but I'll bring it up a little bit closer. And as Josephine mentioned, it's full color, so there's lots of images to look at, as well as the haiku. And I hope some of you will be interested in getting your hands on one of these. I am the Poet Laureate for the Town of Stony Plain, as well as the President for Parkland Poets. And the book is part of a project that I worked on with the town as a legacy project for my first year in the role as Poet Laureate. I'm not the only Poet Laureate here today, though. We're also joined by Vera Constantinea from Greater Sudbury, and she will be joining us very shortly. So let me tell you about the book. I became a Poet Laureate and thought, well, I better get started on a project right away. What can I do that's easy and quick to get started? And I thought, well, the town of Stony Plain is twinned with the town of Shikowi in Hokkaido, Japan. And I thought, as an acknowledgement of that relationship, perhaps I could write a haiku. And why not, write a haiku every day? How hard can it be? I'm looking at the camera to see how many people are smiling and laughing at that most ridiculous thought that I could very easily write a haiku every single day. And you were right to think that it was difficult, because it was very tough. I had to do a little bit of research before I got started. And of course, I thought that haiku was just 5-7-5, a line with 5 syllables, a line with 7, and another line with 5. And didn't it have something to do with nature? That seems pretty easy to, hack away at for a year or two. Anyway, then I discovered that, the Japanese language is very different from the English language. And while we talk about counting 17 syllables in a haiku, in the Japanese language, what they're actually counting is sound units called on. And these sound units work very differently than syllables do. So I can give you an example in the the word haiku, for example. Haiku has 2 syllables in the English language, but it's 3 sound units in Japanese. So when we write 17 syllables, we're being very generous with how many words we put into a haiku, far more than a traditional Japanese haiku would have in it. So I realized that I could be flexible on the number of syllables that I use, and that's what I did. And I'm going to share with you my first haiku. So this first haiku that I'm sharing with you is: bark carries scars the way flesh does. Trees have memories. Bark carries scars the way flesh does. Trees have memories. And you'll notice that this particular haiku has 4 syllables in the first line, 4 syllables in the second, and 5 in the last. So it is slightly different from our 575 that we believe, many people believe that is what goes into haiku. So when I realized we could do this, I adhere really more often to the idea that it's a shorter line by a longer line and a shorter line. And you can see here in this poem, that's not quite the case, but it does have less than 17. So I suppose what I do is 5 or less, 7 or less, 5 or less would be the typical way that I would go about creating a haiku. The next thing that I discovered was that punctuation is different. In Japanese, there are actually sound units, which we might call words, cutting words, they're called kirigi, that would be count for the number of syllables, actually number of sound units that go into a line. So a lot of people now who are writing contemporary haiku in English are not using punctuation or capital letters. So more often than not, you will see haiku that has neither of these. Here is the second haiku that I wanted to share with you. On the river, there are fissures in the ice, memories of movement. On the river, there are fissures in the ice, memories of movement. So you can see in this haiku, I have no punctuation and I have no capitalization at all. And this kind of pattern in my haiku started to emerge as the more that I learned about the form. My book is a really good example of somebody coming to haiku as an absolute beginner. You will find all kinds of different haiku in it. You will find those that adhere to the 575. You'll find those that experiment with longer and shorter lines. You'll see some with punctuation, some without, some with capital letters, some without. It really is a sort of a record of my growth as a poet in this form, and they aren't necessarily in order. So you won't find that my beginning haiku, the first ones that I wrote, are at the beginning of the book, and the more developed ones are later. They're all interspersed together. But you will notice that there are different styles that I have experimented with, and I think more than anything, I hope that the book, when you read it, you'll see it. If you're coming to haiku as a newbie, like I was, that you will see it as giving permission to play and to experiment. And even if you are a seasoned haiku writer, perhaps you may occasionally come across a haiku that doesn't follow the form precisely as you believe it should, but you think, that works, or it's accomplishing something worth experimenting with and worth growing and developing and trying different things. And I think this way we come to find our own particular styles and really help to define ourselves as poets. I think the most interesting thing that I learned about haiku was was how you build upon it's built on two separate parts. So you'll see a haiku is typically divided into two sections. At the end of today's reading, I'd like to direct you to a free resource that we've put together on how to create haiku. And one of the books that I mentioned is included on that list of resources is this book. Oh, I don't know if you can see. I'm sharing my screen. You may not be able to see it. It's called Writing and Enjoying Haiku, a Hands-On Guide, Jane Reichhold. And that book, as I mentioned, is listed in our list of resources, which I'll direct you to soon. And she goes into great detail about how the haiku is divided into two sections. So in this particular poem, you can see on the screen, on the river, there are fissures in the ice. That's a very separate idea from the second part, which is memories of movement. Those two ideas have been put together, but they are both unique. On the river, there are fissures in the ice. That's 2 lines long. Memories of movement, 1 line long. So the shorter section, Memories of Movement, is what Jane Reichhold calls the fragment. And the longer piece, on the river, there are fissures in the ice. That is what she calls the phrase. So it's a phrase and a fragment combined. These two parts of a haiku come together to compare ideas or juxtapose two separate images that encourage us to make a comparison for ourselves, or perhaps build the metaphor in our own minds. You'll notice that in this one, I have separated the two parts with a colon. Low pine branches scoop water from the lake. Children at a spring. Low pine branches scoop water from the lake. Children at a spring. And I would hope that when somebody reads this particular haiku, what they're seeing is that the trees reaching into the water are similar to the way perhaps children would be. Thirsty after playing together, after spending all their energy out in the wilderness, in the environment, enjoying themselves, and then they come to take a drink of water and satisfy their thirst. And so bringing those two separate ideas together is a way to have people perhaps think a little bit more deeper about the words of the work. And I think this, in the space between these two separate ideas, is where the magic happens. Here's another. This one breaks lots of haiku rules, but it just happens to be one of my favorites anyway. Empty jars of creams and miracle cures, bathroom vanity. Empty jars of creams and miracle cures, bathroom vanity. And of course, I'm hoping that people will see that the vanity is not just a cupboard. It perhaps is also the feeling, the desire. The last two slides I'm very excited to share with you. You won't find them in my book. It's 4 more haiku. These will be part of the final project that I do, one of the final projects that I do as Poet Laureate for the Town of Stony Plain. These haiku will be featured. Panels are being made for the gazebo in Rotary Park in Stony Plain. These 4 haiku are representative of the 4 seasons, and I will read them for you. And today you are the first people to come across these. So you'll be hearing them, seeing them for the first time, but in the new year, these will be on display at Rotary Park. Here's spring. Greener grass appears from a patch of melting snow, a whispered promise. Greener grass appears from a patch of melting snow, a whispered promise. Here's summer. Evening frog song swells beneath the blazing sky. Warm smiles ignite. Evening frog song swells beneath the blazing sky. Warm smiles ignite. Here is autumn. Carpet of leaves, a soft home for memory, pressed into the earth. Carpet of leaves, a soft home for memory, pressed into the earth. And finally, here is winter, acknowledging the one thing that we can all get out and do this year during COVID-19. Icicles glisten. Winter sun pierces the mist as children skate. Icicles glisten. Winter sun pierces the mist as children skate. Okay. I do have something else to talk about, but I'm coming back in a short while to share that with you. When I have the great pleasure of introducing Michelle, who is a local poet here. But before we get to that, I'm going to be passing it back to Josephine. We have lots of more interesting things for you, and you don't want to be listening to my voice all night, especially when you can purchase the book and spend all kinds of time with it. And how would you do that? Well, you can visit my webpage at lisamulrooney.com, and you can purchase it there. It's $22, and that will include shipping. So within Canada, North America. So perhaps not overseas, but we can work something out. You could also send me an e-transfer. So my email address is lisamulrooney@gmail.com. So there's a number of ways you can get your hands on this, and I will make sure to get it mailed out to you. So yes, you can spend time with more images and more poetry. And now I'm going to be passing you back to Josephine, because we have lots more interesting haiku things for you.
Okay, wonderful. Lisa, I'm sure during the little break, you'll have a chance to look at the chat. There were many, many people offering you congratulations and telling you how lovely the words are. And I echo that. It's quite an ambitious project, and it's a beautiful project. I'd like to share a few more from the collection that I thought were just stunning. If I hold this there and not move it. You'll have a better time seeing it when you get your copy of the collection. Feather soft moisture hovers airborne, ghost-like, tomorrow's dew. And another one that I really, really liked is closer to the end of the collection. Persistent rain taps at a darkened window, a ticking clock. I probably started haiku myself in elementary or junior high school because it's a fairly easy form for beginners to start learning. And Haiku Canada is it's a society that anyone who's interested in haiku can join. It doesn't matter if you are a beginner haikuist or if you have much experience with it. So I'd like to read one from the first collection that I was published in. Moon out my window, playing hide and seek in nighttime spruce. Moon out my window, playing hide and seek in nighttime spruce. You might wonder why haiku is read twice. They say that the first time it's read for the ears, and the second time it is read for the imagination, so that you can envision what is being said. Also from this collection, by the moon's soft light, I connect the stars that reach from me to you. By the moon's soft light, I connect the stars that reach from me to you. Constellations, stars stitched together by a thread of memory. Constellations, stars stitched together by a thread of memory. This collection is entitled A Far Galaxy, and it was also published by Haiku Canada. Nothing is the same the moment after the sun slips into the sea. Nothing is the same the moment after the sun slips into the sea. And this year I answered a call to submissions by Yannick Bello, who is a French Canadian, and she had a theme of reading and writing. And it's a beautiful collection. There are whimsical drawings along with it, and it's all organized by themes. It was published in Paris, and two of mine were included. I'm going to read them in French and then do a loose translation into English. Encre sur vela, nos vies se déroulent page après page. Encre sur vela, nos vies se déroulent page après page. Ink on vellum, our lives unfurl page after page. Ink on vellum, our lives unfurl page after page. And then the next one is sous la couverture, je lis quelques bribes doucement m'endors. Sous la couverture, je lis quelques bribes doucement m'endors. So underneath the covers, and in French, the word for cover is the same, having a double meaning. It can be the blankets or it can be the cover of a book. So underneath the cover, I read certain passages and slowly fall asleep. I've really loved learning about haiku, and in the last few years, I've been introduced to the haiku of women haikuists. I think when you start off, you learn about Basho, Isa, and there's a third whose name I always forget. They're always touted as the masters. The female haikuists are a little bit underrated, unfortunately. So some, maybe these can go into the chat. The Ink Dark Moon is a wonderful collection of haiku by women. And a white tea bowl as well. I'm involved in a project where we're reading tanka and haiku by traditional haikuists and then responding to it. So it's kind of like a call and response. And I would like to read one of those from my screen. So the one that I leaned on or lent on is by Izumi Shikibu. And hers is a tanka, which is a 5-line. The way I must enter leads through darkness to darkness. O moon above mountain rim, please shine a little further on my path. And that inspired me, and I used her line, O moon above mountain rim. I used that loosely to start mine. Moon on mountain rim, our condensed breath transmutes us. Moon on mountain rim, our condensed breath transmutes us. Some really cool things about haiku as well is because of its size, it's kind of fun to play with. So I created a small haiku booklet, which was essentially 6 haiku of mine that had already been published. And some of them were printed upside down and some of them were printed upside up. And then you fold it and make a cut and then you squish it. And it makes a wee little booklet. So that's one really fun thing to do with haiku. And I was in a workshop in Calgary and we learned how to make little small books which could contain haiku. So as a junior high teacher, I get my students to create these little books and then to put a haiku per season on each page and they can illustrate them if they want. Little fun projects that you can do with haiku. I don't want to lose track of time. There's a few more though. There's one that I submitted to a photo haiku contest in Japan in 2019. It's a Matsuyama photo haiku contest, and I received honorable mention. Me and thousands of people, by the way, had submitted. And the photograph was taken in Calgary on the Glenmore Reservoir. And the haiku is, the symmetry of late summer nights on the water. The symmetry of late summer nights on the water. I also had one published in the Autumn Moon Haiku Journal in the United States. Wrap a woolen scarf around your neck, autumn moon. Frost is at the door. Wrap a woolen scarf around your neck, autumn moon. Frost is at the door. That's all I have for sharing with you. I would like to introduce Vera now. So I will read her bio, which is also on my computer. Vera Constantinea is an award-winning haiku poet whose work has been accepted for publication in reputable journals such as Acorn, Modern Haiku, Presence, and the Wales Haiku Journal. In 2020, she was named Poet Laureate for the city of Greater Sudbury. In April of 2020, Vera's chapbook, 3 Lines at a Time, was published by Buddha Baby Press. So I will mute myself and pass it over to Vera. And sorry for the technical problems that we've been experiencing.
That's okay. Hi, everybody. I am so happy to be here to celebrate the launch of Lisa's book. And I'm just going to adjust my screen. I apologize. It's so appropriately named Moments because she's paired a wealth of moments with perfect perception and connecting every poem and photo. And I can't wait to sit with this book and spend time with it. When writing haiku, I feel like every time we create a moment where a reader and a poet share a common experience, we've done our job as a poet, a haiku poet. And Lisa and I agree there are similarities in the way we work. When writing, I am primarily a senryu writer, and Lisa also observes many human characteristics in her haiku. And George Swede, who co-founded Haiku Canada in 1977, came to the conclusion that English language haiku consists of 3 categories: nature haiku, human haiku, which is senryu, and human plus nature haiku, which is a hybrid. And in a nutshell, the difference between writing haiku and senryu is haiku is man in nature, and senryu is the nature of man. So if you are writing senryu, there is no nature reference at all. It is purely human. And I hope you've all looked at Lisa's Instagram posts because they are stellar. And I know she has downplayed her talent at the beginning, but even the beginning ones are very interesting to read. And I was there for hours. I'm going to read a couple of hers now. I will start with this one. I am afraid to retrace my steps. I may find what I lost. I am afraid to retrace my steps. I may find what I lost. We've all experienced loss, and some more than others, but this poem is so multifaceted that kind of creation is exciting to me, both as a poet and a reader, because there are so many different meanings you can give it. And another, a crow repeats its daring challenge, unmasked cough. And Lisa wrote this poem 6 months after the pandemic started. And I'm certain we're all aware of the virus in our surroundings, and that's why this poem is so powerful. The darkness of the crow, the darkness of our times, and the dark fear invoked by that unmasked cough, all of that is so connected and powerful in its delivery. And the photo that goes with it is equally good. And please go and look. And Lisa and I also share something else. We like to put a little humor in our poetry every once in a while. And so on a lighter note, I will just tell you this one. Teenager's bedroom, science experiments on supper plates. Teenager's bedroom, science experiments on supper plates. And what parent among us has not experienced that? Or this, house guests welcome until fully unpacked, hair on soap. House guests welcome until fully unpacked, hair on soap. And a personal favorite of mine, for reasons I will explain later, light trickles from her auburn hair, a rusty faucet. Light trickles from her auburn hair, a rusty faucet. My most beloved niece has hair you would describe this way. And when I read the poem the first time, it took me back to when she was young, and her hair was so beautiful. People would comment it all the time, and she became afraid that someone would steal her because of her hair. We had to stop. That's the thing a poem can do for you. It can bring you back to the past while creating its own lovely visual window, and you get that rusty faucet image, and then you get the rusty faucet image, and then the sound of the water because it's mentioned, and or the trickle is mentioned, and then you get the previous introduction of light, and I mean, it's all so good. And Lisa, in her role as Poet Laureate, creating these stellar poems and having just begun, and I've been writing a long time, it gives us a lot to live up to as haiku poets, Lisa. It really does. And one of the things that we will have to all be conscious of if we're going to follow in Lisa's very capable footsteps is to observe the surroundings and people that we come in contact with. Note the details and then translate them in a way that you're relating your personal experience to the reader. And that's how you give your experience to the person you are speaking to, or to the one who is reading your poem, is by translating your feelings and emotions and your senses to that person. I have one last poem of Lisa's I'd like to read, and then I'd like to read a couple of examples of my own work. Friendship and laughter seal the cracks in broken souls. Hot tea in old cups. Friendship and laughter seal the cracks in broken souls. Hot tea in old cups. I particularly like this poem because I collect teacups. And I love tea, and I have been known to lean closer to my friends through times of pain, but also through times of joy. And this poem really says that to me. And Lisa is a talent, and I'm so glad to have met her. We met in a high bun workshop. And when I saw there was another poet laureate there, I pounced. And I was so glad to see her. And then she had to leave, and I'm just glad that we have stayed in touch. As a result of that workshop, I did start writing haibun, which is a prose piece with an accompanying haiku. And I'd like to read a couple of mine for you now. The first one is called Afternoon, and it was published in Failed Haiku this year. There's a chill in the breeze through the open window as I sign my brother's weekly note. I'm told he's busy, that there is much for him to do. He's regular barber's appointments, afternoon walks to the gazebo on the fringe of the property, his walks to the mailbox, and any other place he takes it in his head to go. And of course, there are the new people he meets every day. I place a stamp squarely in the corner of the envelope and seal the flap. 18 letters now. Sometimes a photograph or a poem he's always loved is included. What does he think when these notes with their tokens arrive, now that he's lost his mind? Near the fence, watching traffic on a nameless road. That is in honor of my brother, who I lost not that many months ago. The next is called Say Uncle, and it was published in the fall in Modern Haiku. He likes pie. He likes an evening walk. His one talent is his ability to move his entire scalp by lifting his bushy eyebrows. Just so. His short black hair glides forward and back over his skull, a mystery I've never solved. Mostly he is a wastrel. Yes, he likes pie. Yes, he likes an evening walk. Yes, he likes a peep through the upstairs bedroom keyhole. Bending the light, gnarled hands clutch the old Bible. And now I would like to read a few poems for you from my own mini chapbook, 3 lines at a time. Again, I'm primarily a Senryu writer, so I've focused on Senryu tonight. Stage 4, not the actor he once was. Stage 4, not the actor he once was. Late spring, new snow falls on robins. Late spring, new snow falls on robins. Cherry blossoms. Last year's visit, the last. Cherry blossoms. Last year's visit, the last. Hot tub rental place, thinking of all that came before. Hot tub rental place, thinking of all that came before. And this is the title poem for my small book. Filling my notebook 3 lines at a time. Summer sun. Filling my notebook 3 lines at a time. Summer sun. And I sped through that 10 minutes. That's my presentation. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Vera. That was beautiful and very, very poignant. I think we all really appreciate the tribute to your brother.
Thank you.
The haiku within the haibun. So the haibun is a prose text, and then it's usually ended with a haiku, and your lines were bending the light, gnarled hands clutch the old Bible. It's very, very evocative. As I found your cherry blossoms haiku very evocative. Last year's visit, the last. So there is so much unsaid, but it's all evoked, and I think it's felt by everyone. So thank you very much. Thank you also for your insight into Lisa's collection, Moments. And it's the kind of thing that I'm sure that if you've got somebody on your list for Christmas and you're not really sure what they would like in COVID, being able to sit by the fire and enjoy poetry and photography. And it's the kind of book that you keep on your coffee table and just, I sometimes open at random. I'm not really the front to back kind of poetry reader. I open at random and see if there's any inspiration. So for instance, I just opened this evening at the fair, teenagers and mosquitoes make the most of it. The big swings. Evening at the fair, teenagers and mosquitoes make the most of it. Lisa will be inviting another featured guest right now. Her name is Michelle, so I'm going to mute myself again.
Hello, I'm back again. Thank you so much, Josephine and Vera. Thank you very, very much for all of your kind words and the things that you had to say about my poetry. It was very humbling, actually, and yes, I feel very, very honored also by the fact that there are 50 people attending tonight, which is spectacular. And I'd like to think that that's about me, but it's probably not. It's about haiku. Haiku is an awesome form. And you know what? If you don't already write it, I hope that you've been given some encouragement today. Oh, we got a little bit of feedback there. If anybody isn't muted, I'll just ask them. Oh, I know who the culprit was. Michelle, it was you. You're the culprit because you're getting geared up to speak, aren't you? Don't unmute yourself just yet. Because I want to talk about you. Even though you're right here, I'm going to talk about you anyway. So Michelle, after I read your bio, you don't get to go either, because I still want to talk to you about you a little bit more after that. So here's Michelle's bio. Michelle was born in Nova Scotia. I'm going to actually just bring her up here so you can see who I'm talking about. She moved to Alberta in 1977, and so Alberta has been home for quite some time. She's got 3 children and 5 grandchildren. Loves to read, play poker with the girls, write, and be at one with nature. Family is everywhere to me, she says. And I can attest to that, because anybody who knows Michelle will agree that she makes all of us feel like her family. Michelle looks out for all of us, and she's a huge supporter of Parkland Poets. She is the reason why, she didn't ever want me to say this, but I'm sorry, I'm going to let you down today, Michelle. She's the reason why we have coffee. She bought us a coffee pot, which we can't use during COVID. But you know what? When COVID is over, we get to have coffee again. Michelle, the reason why I wanted to invite Michelle to present tonight is because I wanted to tell you about something that Parkland Poets did together with me in my role as Poet Laureate. And that was we had a contest for Alberta Culture Days. We put a call out for people to submit haiku. And the idea was that we would choose a small selection of those to paint onto the sidewalk in Stony Plain. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is one that we selected, and this was written by Michelle. It's "Life is everlasting. Mother Earth recycles all her creations. Life is everlasting. Mother Earth recycles all her creations." Now, many of these haiku are still painted on the sidewalks around Stony Plain. They are fading, and they will eventually fade away completely, but they are available to be seen still for a while. Probably there are 6 of them. I expect they'll last past the winter, maybe into the spring and the summer, but who knows? So I do encourage you to drop by town. These are located by our local town hall and also by the Multicultural Heritage Center. But what happened was, when we put this call out for haiku, people submitted 5 of them. I believe it was 5. It was quite a large selection. And there were some that were stellar and they really stood out. But I would say it was not common that all of the poems submitted by one single person were amazing, as was the case with Michelle. Every single haiku that she submitted was amazing. And it's quite stunning to realize that Michelle had never written haiku before. So, you know, this was a case of discovering just an innate talent. It was something that Michelle didn't even know that she had. And so she's been writing haiku ever since. I think she's going to talk a little bit about that. But that's why I invited Michelle, because a beginner like myself, but somebody who was shocked to discover that she has this ability, and I hope that she continues to stick with it, because it's something pretty special. So I'll let you unmute yourself now, Michelle, and you can join us.
I first heard about writing a haiku, and I never even heard the word before. It was quite a learning curve, because I didn't know any of the rules and had entered the 5 haikus. And sorry, the feedback is awful. And I didn't know anything about 17 syllables or anything. And I had read one of my haikus at a meeting I was at, and I was told that that wasn't a haiku. And I was kind of worried, because I had entered these 5 haikus that I didn't follow any rule for, and definitely didn't do 17 syllables. Anyway, after the meeting, I was quite upset and discouraged. And then I talked to Lisa, and she informed me I had won and has given me so much encouragement. She really is a super lady. And I want to thank you, Lisa, because without you, I wouldn't be here tonight. So thank you. Now I will read my 5 haikus, or 6, whatever. Okay. Dreams not remembered, moments missed, blink. Dreams not remembered, moments missed, blink. Education, inspiration, discrimination's enemy. Education, inspiration, discrimination's enemy. Mother Earth embraces all beauty with open arms and her eyes closed. Mother Earth embraces all beauty with open arms and her eyes closed. Exceptions, not the rule. Dreams that become reality. Exceptions, not the rule. Dreams that become reality. The bird's silence predicts our future. The bird's silence predicts our future. Life's dance, moment shared, crossroads. Life's dance, moment shared, crossroads. Moon's cycle, no beginning, no end, life. Moon's cycle, no beginning, no end, life. And I want to read one little funny one that I had wrote. Coming home well past curfew, mom's light is on, great expectations. Coming home well past curfew and mom's light is on, great expectations. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.